Hello and welcome to American Football Bets. I'm your host Lewis, and today we'll be going over my tips for game week 3 of the NFL season. As always, please gamble responsibly. Link is in the description below. Please like and subscribe. It takes just 2 seconds of your time. 2 clicks of a button makes a huge difference to the channel. We'll be having weekly videos like this, so do like and subscribe for more content like this. But without further ado, let's get into it. So first, just a very quick overview from my week 2 tips. My nap of the week came in for the second week in a row with Noah Fant on the over 21.5 receiving yards. We smashed this bet easily in the end, starting us on for another winning week. The other nap of the week was Josh Jacobs to rush for over 60 yards, which came in. And the next best bet that we had was Gibbs to rush for over 68.5 yards, which he did easily, rushing for 94 yards in the end as well. That was 3 winning bets for last week, and then we just missed out on the Acker tip, with the only leg letting us down being Derrick Henry to rush for over 94.5 yards, which was unlike him, and he was far below that rushing yards in the end. Which let the Acker down in the end, unfortunately. I also had the under on the Dolphins and Patriots game, which turned out to be a huge scoring game, which I don't think many people foresaw. So I can safely say we got that one wrong. But of all the other bets coming in, overall, it was another winning week for week 2. And with last week covered, let's look ahead to my nap, my next best, my accumulator for this week. So just a quick note and explanation as to how I've made my choices for this week's bets. Obviously, when making these selections, you have to take into account the current roster and also last week's performances, including week 1 and week 2. We still have an incredibly small sample size and set of data from game week 1 and 2 only, so some weight is given to last year's performances. And in cases where the roster remains mostly unchanged for teams, and especially where their performances in game week 1 and 2 suggest the same strengths and weaknesses as we saw from last season, those are the teams to target, as predictions can tend to be more reliable, and you're able to look at a bigger sample size than just weeks 1 and 2 this year. Then for those teams, I narrow down the fixtures I'm interested in betting on by looking at teams playing each other that have opposing strengths and weaknesses. For example, are there any teams that have a particularly good rushing yards, or are good at the rushing game? Are they playing any teams that allow a lot of rushing yards on their defence? Are there any teams that are particularly good for passing yards, playing teams that give up a lot of passing yards, etc.? So now that's all explained, let's look at this week's bets and betting angles in more detail. So I've broken up this week's bets into my nap, my next best, and my Acker for the week. And my nap for week 3 is going to target the Seattle Seahawks versus the New Orleans Saints fixture. This is a perfect matchup for Sam Darnold, who, as we know from last season, can certainly put up a lot of passing yards in the right situation. The Saints have demonstrated yet again a poor defence against the passing game, so it's worth looking at what under and over markets bookies are offering for players in the Seahawks roster. The under-over line for Seahawks wide receiver 1, Jackson Smith-Njigba, really caught my eye this week, with the line sitting at just 75.5 receiving yards. In his first 2 games this season, against stronger teams in the 49ers and the Steelers, Jackson Smith-Njigba put up 124 and 103 receiving yards. This week he's up against a poor Saints team with a weaker defence, so I'll certainly be placing a bet on this for Jackson Smith-Njigba to have more than 75.5 receiving yards against the Saints. Just a quick reminder that last year Saints were ranked 28th in the league on average passing yards allowed, and their first 2 performances again this season have shown similar weaknesses. So I think that the over and Njigba is a good line to target, with most bookies offering over Jackson Smith-Njigba to receive over 75.5 receiving yards at odds around evens. My next best bet for the week turns to the huge Monday Night Football game between the Lions and the Ravens. This is going to be a massive game, which I think will likely be a high-scoring game, which the bookies also seem to agree with, and they have a really high total points over-under market on this one, thinking that there'll be probably around 53 points, which I think is about right, so it's not going to be a line that I target. But I think there'll be a lot of passing yards in this game, building up throughout the game. And although I think the bookies have priced the passing market yards rightly for both quarterbacks, Jared Goff and Lamar Jackson, I think choosing the Raven, who is cementing his position as wide receiver 1, for receiving yards is a good choice. And that is, of course, Zay Flowers. And in weeks 1 and 2, Flowers had 143 and 75 receiving yards against the Bills and the Browns. This week against the Lions, who are a team who let up quite a lot of passing yards, the over-under line for Flowers is just 69.5 yards. I think this is low for Ravens wide receiver 1. And the Ravens, of course, playing a huge Monday night game. They have a little extra rest, and against the Lions defence, who, as I say, have been letting up a lot of passing yards. For those reasons, I'll be betting on Flowers to receive over 69.5 yards this week at odds of around evens. Now for the week 3 Acker, and in addition to the 2 legs we've already mentioned, there is just one more leg in this fairly safe and again, at least as safe as accumulators go, even though it's a threefold. And the odds for this accumulator come out at around 5-1 depending on what bookies you choose. But the final edition for this threefold looks at the Eagles matchup against the Rams. And through weeks 1 and 2, Saquon Barkley has been fairly quiet compared to his usual standards. And I think that this is a game where he'll be suited against the Rams defence, who are strong against the passing game, but notably weaker across various key metrics in the rushing game. The Eagles coaching staff will be aware of this and able to exploit those weaknesses on the Rams defense with a star athlete like Saquon Barkley rushing the ball. You can get odds of Saquon Barkley as an individual bet to rush for around 80 yards at around 3-2 or greater, but placing this threefold accumulator with the other picks we've mentioned, this gives us odds at about 5-1 for the threefold across the weekend of great games that we have lined up. So that's it for today's picks. Thanks very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. It takes just a moment of your time, helps this channel a ton, and of course keeps you updated with our content. We have had winning weeks for both weeks 1, week 2, and hopefully week 3, and many more to come throughout the season. If you're going to be placing any of the bets I've mentioned in this video, or if you have any other picks for this week, please let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure to respond. We will continue to have weekly tips during the season, so please like and subscribe for more, and see you next time.